Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today we have a special guest, Jake Gulick from Greyfinch, joining us on the show. In this episode, we are diving into the ins and outs of practice management software, from telehealth capabilities to the future of orthodontic practice management technology. We're covering it all. So let's dive in. Hey docs, let's talk about SmileSuite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud SmileSuite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. SmileSuite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at getsmilesuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with SmileSuite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence. Jake, I am so excited to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the inception of Greyfinch, and what inspired you to create a cloud-based orthodontic practice management software.
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career in the orthodontics field back. Oh man, Jill, it makes me feel old now saying every time I got to go another year, I think 16, 17 years now. So I've been in this space for a while, and I started at Telehealth, which is a company that did appointment reminders back when a lot of practice management softwares, websites, all that kind of stuff. And so it was a great introduction to the dental and orthodontic space for me. And I realized I loved it, especially the ortho side of it. I was fortunate enough to be able to go be, I think it was employee number 2 or so at Cloud9 back when they were getting started. I was good friends with Brett Smith, who was at Televox before and was one of the founders at Cloud9. And so I was able to go over there. I really believed in the future of orthodontics being a web-based practice management software with all the servers out there and all that kind of stuff. At my young age, took a big risk and went over there and really helped them grow the software. And after about 4.5 years, I was ready to do my own thing. And so I had the opportunity and met some people, and they were looking to start up a new software. And so our visions aligned with what we thought it should be and where really orthodontics should go with practice management software that really wasn't being done in the industry at that time. So we started building Greyfinch, and one of the things we've really tried to do was just build a lot of things into the software so you don't have to have 10 different third parties and things like that. And the platform is extremely important, and I'm a big believer in web-based practice management software, which is what Cloud9 was as well too. And so I'm biased, but that's what I believe that is what people should be using for these days.
Yeah. And I am so thankful that you jumped in and did this, because I think Greyfinch is a great company. As you and I both know, we've got a lot of doctors that are getting onto the software and loving it. And I think it is exactly what we needed in our industry. You're right. I believe Cloud9 kind of paved the path for us in seeing that, yeah, we don't need those stinking servers in the in the office anymore. And there is a way for us to be able to function on something out on the cloud and still be able to do all of our work without necessarily being handicapped by the internet or whatnot. So I'm wondering, as we dive in, because as I've got a lot of younger listeners and doctors that are looking to really get into their first platform and hopefully their only platform, because we all know changing software is not fun and not something that we want to do. But I'm wondering if you can just talk to us a little bit about when you were bringing this together and thinking about what are the core features or the core things that I really want to make sure that we're bringing to the table that maybe other companies haven't done, or that we feel like we can do better in our space. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing is understanding what people want out there. And with my experience in the past, I had been in hundreds of offices and hearing what people were asking for, what they're wanting for, and then just seeing what the technology is available out there. It's really, okay, let's not think about what we're trying to solve for today, but what are we trying to solve for the next 5 to 10 years? What do patients want? What are they going to expect? Because I think that traditional practice management softwares, and I'll say this, there's nothing wrong with this because at the time it was the right thing, but they really focus on just the clinic, not the patients. And in today's world, we need to be thinking about your patients too, and how are they interacting with your practice management software. And one of the things we like to say at Greyfinch is that we're a practice management software that's not just for your practice, but it's also for your patients. And they need to be interacting with it. And that could just be as simple as responding to a text message. It could be as simple as getting an automated message for Net Promoter Score on how do you rate us, how likely you to refer us to your friends and family on a scale of 1 to 10, and then asking them for reviews and things like that. Or it could be they're going into the Greyfinch app and the My Smile Hub app and managing their appointments, making payments, updating their auto draft information, those types of things. And it's really, when you think about it, I'm in the middle of changing my checking account right now, which is a nightmare. It's honestly might be as bad as changing practice management softwares on a painfulness scale.
So true.
And one of the things that I was thinking about is just how hard it is to do that, and what you have to do you got to really, what are your important things that you want out of software and that kind of stuff, and really think about those things, because you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success for the future, not just for the now, right? Don't get caught up on pricing. Don't get caught up on those things. You need to look at the bigger picture of what the companies are trying to do and what their end goals are with that kind of stuff. We really just try to listen to our customers, try to listen to what the trends are out there, but also what we see in the future. We were the first ones to have an appointment widget where patients could schedule on your website 24/7, 365. We see a 60% increase in new patient exams scheduled. Now, there's some things to think about with that. With the no-show rates tend to be a little higher with those. So you have to think about through some of those stuff. But an extra no-show for patients being able to schedule whenever they want. And clinics didn't ask for that, to be fair. They do now, but back when we built it 5 years ago, they weren't asking for it. And so we're trying to think about those things too, and what we see. It's really sad to me that we can go to which utility companies are, quite frankly, not very usually high on the tech bubbles of different things, right? On the levels. But it's sad that I can go in there and update my auto draft information, but I can't update it for my orthodontic care, right? And with Greyfinch, you can. And those are the things that we're trying to empower the patients to do more things, so they're not having to call the office. Because we're in a world today where people want access 24/7, 365 to their stuff. So really try to think about that too, not just the practice management side of it.
No, I think that's great. And everything that you're saying is exactly what the consumers are looking for. When we get out there and we look and pull some of the data of the different demographics of different ages and whatnot, everybody wants time right now. Everybody wants their time back. And sometimes you're a busy mom and you're like, I don't have the time to call in during normal business hours. And I know that they need my credit card updated. And I know that this, that, or the other. Or like you said, just the ease of being able to go on and make your next appointment without physically having to call in, I think is great. But I think the flip side, and docs, what I want you to hear about this is when we're looking at our orthodontic practices of the future, one of the things, if you've heard me speaking on stage or whatnot, is really talking about having these lean, mean offices where we don't have this excess amount of employees. And I think, gosh, when we look at all of the busy work that we all do within our businesses, 80% of it is maybe work that we have to do, but could it be refined and defined a little bit? And I think something as simple as maybe cutting down 50% of your phone calls into the practice, or being able to communicate. And I know you can maybe speak to this a little bit with patients through texting, some of those different things. Maybe you can speak to that and what you guys have been able to see with the practices, even with that.
Yeah, I can tell you our Twilio bill is not going down as our provider for SMS. I'll tell you, to be completely honest, Jill, if I had known how much of I don't know if pain is the right word. The texting world is a very interesting world because it's controlled by these carriers out there. Anyways, long story short, they've made a lot of changes over the last year. And if you do two-way texting, you maybe have felt some pain with different things. We stay on top of that for you. That's one less thing you have to worry about. But the adoption of the texting is huge. And there's people that absolutely use the heck out of it. And we're going to continue to push new features out that revolve around the texting and that type of stuff, and email too, right? In both. But we're about to release text to pay, for example, right? So instead of, as soon as someone declines, They get a text message with a link. They don't have to go log in to the patient hub to do it. They can just do it through that unique URL and update their auto draft and make a payment. And there's going to be more to it than that, but it makes it simple, right? And that's what's so important. We've made mistakes at Greyfinch, even with how we've implemented things. When we first released our medical form, so Greyfinch has a fully customizable medical form where patients can fill it out at home. It's super mobile friendly. And one of the unique things is it goes right back into the patient's chart. You don't have to, a lot of systems have an electronic medical form, but then you have to like manually move it into their chart. We don't do it that way. We have what are called APIs to every field. So when they mark they have high blood pressure, you get an alert in their chart when you open it up. They have high blood pressure, for example. But so we've really tried to think about when we did that, though, what we did is we basically made it where they had to create an account. That was a mistake. We learned real fast that the adoption to patients to doing that, to fill out a form, they're not going to do that. And so we had to reverse it. So we've learned along the way as well, because consumer behavior is different than even though we're all consumers the employees that work in the clinics.
Yep.
It's different on how you have to approach the usability of it. And so our UI designers have done a great job of really trying to think through that stuff. And we run a lot of tests now with consumers and things like that. We do a lot more than you'd be surprised. I think a lot of people would be on the kind of the behind the scenes on what we do to try to make the product the best we can for you guys. We're not just trying to guess out here that this might work, because we've learned in the past, we can't do that. We need to really understand how the consumers, if we're trying to make stuff more for patients.
Yeah. And I would say, because I get to work with a lot of softwares out there and a lot of different companies, one of the things that I have really appreciated about you and the company is that you guys are constantly updating and moving forward. And I think for some of us who've been in the industry for over 30 years, we know there are still softwares out there that are doing things the exact same way they were doing it 30 years ago. The updates just aren't staying up with where our consumers are at. And just the difference in the patients in our practices now, even 10 years ago, and what they're looking for and how they're looking for their experience in your practice is so different. And I think having an interface that's acting on behalf of an employee within your own practice really is making the difference. I think sometimes, and even where patients are choosing to do their business at and choosing to have a relationship.
Yeah. How many times, Jill, have you been into like a doctor's appointment and you get their medical form that you're supposed to fill out online, and it's, I'm supposed to fill this out on my phone? What is this? I had that exact same experience 6 months ago, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I took my daughter in for ortho, and of course I'm biased, but I got the Greyfinch link and I filled it out for my daughter. I was like, this was easy. It was so seamless. And I'm biased, but this is how the experience should be. Like, why are we still doing it this old way and not doing it right? We know why. A lot of it has to come down with cost. We try to do things, but we are a newer, more modern platform, so we're able to leverage those kind of things too and do things differently.
And speaking of doing things differently, I definitely want you to talk a little bit about kind of the telehealth capabilities that you have and we have in Greyfinch, because I think that this is exactly, yes, we had a lot of virtual consults and this and that when we were going through COVID, but this is next level in how we're doing it and really thinking about our data security and HIPAA and all of that. So would you mind just diving in? Because to me, again, this is the future of where we are going, and having a really good way to do this without having to use a bunch of different companies to pull this together, where we were great at cobbling it together, right, as we had to, but to think that we now have software that can help us with this. So do you mind speaking to that a little bit?
Yeah, when COVID hit, we were really just getting going. Greyfinch was. We had been in development for a while. We had beta users before that and all that kind of stuff. We were really just getting going. So we didn't have hundreds and hundreds of customers, but the ones that we did have, we're like, what can we do to help you? What is it that we can do to help you during this time? Because it's unprecedented. And the first thing they said is we need ability to help us mass reschedule all of our patients when we can open up again. Great. So we built that, saved hundreds probably of maybe thousands of hours of staff time and cost for the clinics. But then the next thing the big thing was telehealth, being able to do video calls within Greyfinch, because they needed to still see their patients, even though they couldn't come in. So to be honest with you, Jill, that wasn't on any roadmap in the next probably year at the time. But we adapted, we changed. We're an agile shop, so that means we do what we need to do. And so I think I always joke, but I think I'm serious. I think I worked more during the COVID time, like that April month, than I probably had ever worked at Greyfinch, because
Mhm.
we were just trying to get things done and do what we could for our customers. And so we basically built a telehealth platform within Greyfinch. So you can market specific appointments as telehealth appointments. And what it does is when you schedule them, it automatically emails the patient a link and puts that link inside their appointment in their chart. So when you start that appointment, you just click the link and you both are talking to each other, just like we're doing now over video. There's no software to install or anything like that, which is, again, really important because people are
Yeah.
having to use Zoom and you got to download stuff or whatever it is that they're using. And it's just not super frictionless
Yep.
for everybody. So we took the approach of this and we're like, this is great. Let's extend this out. So basically, any appointment can be scheduled as a telehealth appointment if you need to. A lot of people are using it for emergencies because you don't
Great.
may always need them to come in. Let's just
Yeah.
schedule a quick 15-minute call. We have a lot of customers that do a lot of remote monitoring stuff and they leverage our platform for that. Even if their platform has it built in, they're using Greyfinches because it's all part of their schedule and part of their systems and their processes
Yes.
already. So they don't have to have it and use it through another system and have it
Mhm.
disconnected, right?
Mhm.
And then for new patient exams, we added it to our appointment widget. So if people want to leverage that for patients that aren't quite ready to come in to see you, but maybe they just want to do a quick call to get to know you a little bit more, 10-minute call or whatever you want to schedule, they can do it through the appointment widget too. So it's funny because the adoption of it, obviously during the COVID times, there was a lot of people using it, but I see the bills and look at those. And so I see the dollars go up on that. And it's great because each month it's increasing, which I want
Mhm.
to see. It's a weird thing to think about that you want your costs to increase, but that means they're using what we've built for them and they're
Right.
seeing more value in what we're doing, which is the most important thing for us.
Right. And when I can't help but think, as I have more and more doctors that are also moving into really pouring money into ad spend and getting out there and marketing, and again, talking about, I call them our A and our B patients. Our A patients are those ones that are referred over, they're a solid lead in from a patient or a general dentist. Our Bs are, I call them, be cautiously optimistic that they're going to show up and that they're going to start. And usually those leads are coming from some type of an online ad spend campaign. And I just think about, gosh, docs, if we could even again think about leveraging our time, maybe we're scheduling those patients that are, they don't have any connection anywhere else. Maybe we're scheduling those in as more, or encouraging them to schedule more of this virtual appointment with us to do the quick check-in, to see how serious they are, instead of letting them get right into our schedule. It becomes the best of both worlds. Now we're being mindful of our time, being mindful of our schedule, but yet still meeting the needs of the patients that are out there. So I appreciate that you guys are doing this. And again, I think it is where our industry is going, and where we're going to continue to see more and more consumers at. We're talking all the time about transparency and what patients are looking for, or potential patients are looking for. And I think even just to be able to do a quick face to face with the doctor before they commit, makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why we keep seeing people use it. And that's the use keeps going
Yeah.
up because they're finding that and the patients like it, right? It's more convenient for them. My daughter had a doctor's appointment for something the other day and I was like, can we just not do a telehealth? Like, no, you have to go in person for this. I'm like, "Ugh, how inconvenient. I'm
I
that person. I'm like, I don't
Yes.
want to, it's 2 hours out of my day to do that stuff. So it's so much more convenient for people. And that's what people want now, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's that younger generation that's your patients now and they're having kids and they're bringing them in. They want that convenience. So you want to make sure that your systems are in place to help with that and to
Yeah.
provide that for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about. I know not only do I have a lot of younger docs and docs that are getting started or thinking about getting started, but I do have a lot of listeners that are existing practices and are just getting to the point where they're like, I'm not seeing the updates that I used to see with my software. All these things that you guys are talking about, that's not happening. And I'm not bashing any other software, but there just sometimes comes a point where maybe it's time to start making changes. Let's talk about maybe some advice you might have for docs, because you talk about changing a checking account. Changing software is tough. I have 32 years in this industry. I've worked and walked alongside a lot of practices doing a conversion, and oof, not fun. I always tell my docs and my teams, if we're going to make changes, let's do it. Let's go all in, get through it, plan on a hellacious time for the first 3 months or so until you get it under control. And then you don't need to look in the rearview mirror anymore. Things are moving forward. But I'd love to hear your advice and your thoughts for some of our existing practices out there that may be going, maybe it's time for me to make a change and move forward with my operating system.
Yeah, that's the first thing that you have to be ready to do it and wanting to do it, right? It's not a wishy-washy even, maybe I shouldn't, because as you said, it's not easy. I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen it. I used to train offices, so I've been on boots on the ground in these clinics when they're switching. And so there's a few things that I would definitely recommend. Number one is, as you said, you need to be wanting to make that change. But then after you decide that, the next step is to really make a list or talk to your staff. What is it that you would change about our practice management software? What is it that we can't do that we wish we could do? But those are important. But also, what do we love about our practice management software? What can we not live without? What are the processes that we have built around our practice management software? That's the number one thing that I think a lot of offices, especially larger ones, don't think through maybe before they start going down this path is, what do I have built around the practice management software?
We all know running and growing an orthodontic practice isn't easy, and technology is supposed to help you, but oftentimes your practice management software doesn't. Some of them are even clunky and need lots of third-party add-ons. That's why I recommend Greyfinch to my startup and existing clients, because Greyfinch is different. Greyfinch is an all-in-one web-based platform that saves you time and boosts your client base, productivity, and bottom line, with no downloads or third-party software needed. It even has tools you can't find anywhere else, like televisits, two-way email and text messaging, a patient self-service hub, and much more. Want to see how it can grow your practice? Visit greyfinch.com/Jill Allen and see why countless leading practices have made the switch. By now, we all know I talk to a lot of doctors and give advice to practices in every stage of their life cycle. And one question my docs ask all the time is, who do you recommend for marketing to attract more new patients from the internet? My answer? Easy. I have been recommending Mary Kay Miller and her team at Kaleidoscope for the better part of a decade. Why? They are thorough, professional, and transparent. Kaleidoscope Digital Marketing is who you want to talk to because they understand how to market in the orthodontic world, and they offer tools that are affordable and easy to use. I'm telling you, if you're looking to step up your digital presence, Kaleidoscope should be your first call. Go to contactkl.com to request your free digital marketing consultation. That's contactkl.com.
And you don't think about it, but you build your processes around your practice management software.
Yes.
And depending on what you're doing, you may not have that depending on that feature. So you need to think through all those things that we do and what's triggering stuff and so forth, because the last thing you want to do is switch and then realize 2 weeks afterwards that we really need this and whatever system you're using now can't support you, and that becomes a problem. Now, most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, you usually can figure out ways around that kind of stuff, right? There's always different ways to do that stuff. But so after you get that stuff together, then what I would do is evaluate what your goals are for the next 10 years, right? In this practice and in the practice management software, because this is not something you're going to want to do again, I assure you. And again, both Jill and I are making it sound like it's like the end of the world. It's not the worst thing you're ever going to do in your life. It's just painful. It can be. And a lot of it is about it is. And a lot of it is how you approach it, to be honest. And the attitude of the staff is a big part of it, I tell Kelly, who does a lot of our sales, I say, I don't care if the doctor wants to buy it. If the staff hasn't seen it yet, we need to show it to them. I realize it is the doctor's decision. It's their practice 100%. But if we get the staff bought in before we go in there, it makes everybody's life, including that doctor's life, a lot better because they're bought into it too. And it wasn't just a decision, even though they use it all the time. They're the ones using it 90% of the time. But after you get all that done, then evaluate, do I really need to switch softwares, or should I look for some third-party add-ons that work really well? And maybe that's not what you want, right? Maybe you do want an all-encompassing one solution, and that's what you have to make that decision, which is probably weird for me to say that maybe you shouldn't switch softwares and add a third party, but I really think you need to evaluate what's best for your practice. And I tell Kelly too, I say Greyfinch isn't a fit for every single practice, right? That's why there's different solutions out there. Everybody has different priorities. And so we as Greyfinch need to recognize that too, and let you know that maybe you aren't a good fit because of X, Y, and Z too. Doesn't do anybody any good to have you come on board and not be successful with us. And so just know that Greyfinch is invested in you just like you're investing in Greyfinch to make sure it's successful as well. So you really need to sit down and talk to the staff and figure those things out and decide, is this something we really want to do? And then do your research, right? Look at different systems. There's all kinds of Facebook groups out there that people are members of, and we get a lot of leads from that, people asking which softwares to look at. Google searches are great too, read through it, but then doing demos. I will say I would not do a demo of 5 or 6 different systems. That's not necessary. It's too many. You're going to get confused. Find your top 2 or 3 and really focus on those, and then talk to other users that use the software. Read Google reviews. Was customer service important to you? If it's not, that's great. Is two-way texting important to you? And figure those things out and make sure that they can check. No one's going to check all 30 of your boxes. So that's just the reality of software in general. But once you get all that, then you can make a really good informed decision for your practice. And one thing that I think that a lot of doctors don't think about, and it's not their fault, they're not a lot of them aren't super technology driven, but it is the platform that the software is built on. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm a big believer in web-based. And when we say that, I think one of the misconceptions out there, Jill, out there in this world is that in the ortho practice management space is everybody has a cloud now, right? But that is different. Not everybody, you call it a cloud, whatever, right? Someone's hosting your server, that's fine. But it needs to go deeper than that. Can you use it across all your devices? Does it work on iPads? Does it work on Macs? Does it work on PCs? Do you have to install software? Those are the questions that you need to ask to really understand. Because I've seen it happen before. I had someone that was looking at another system and they thought they were going to use a Mac. And I was like, well, are you using Parallels with that or Boot Camp? Because it's a Windows software. So and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait. So you really have to make sure you understand this. And we're here to help you with that. And again, as I said, we want to make sure that it's a good fit for you guys, for the doctors, just as much as it is for us, because otherwise no one wins.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you touched on, and I don't know if you can expand on this just a little bit, but you talked on if doctors are making a decision, really thinking about the third party companies that are, and I even think a little beyond that is interfacing. Do you have certain companies that you've been working with? Do they interface? Do they not interface? Do you need that anymore? Type of a thing too. And maybe you can speak to that just a little bit, but I just think those are the other things that we have to really be thinking about.
Yeah, you're right, because there's integrations with companies that do two-way texting or stuff that that some practice management software is doing, that Greyfinch is doing. So those are important to an extent if your PMS doesn't do what you need it to do, right, with that stuff. But then there's the other side of that. It's stuff that is like remote monitoring or things that companies like OrthoFi or what different things like that are not necessarily things that a practice management software is ever going to do. And how do you interface with those? And so we've taken a different approach at Greyfinch on our integrations. I'll tell this story, but I had someone in the industry, are you guys never going to integrate with anybody? Because we don't have a ton of integrations. We have some, but we don't have a ton. And the answer to that was always, no, we will integrate with anybody in due time. and what I mean by that is, first off, we need to set it up like we want to get the product where we want to get it. Because the problem is the way that integrations have been done in the past is that the two companies work together and 3 to 6 months later you have an integration. That honestly is ridiculous in this day and age with technology, that an integration should take that long. And no one's fault per se, but in this space, nobody has built open APIs so that it makes it really easy for other people to integrate with you. Being a practice management software, everybody wants to integrate with us, right? Because we have all the data. We're the source of truth for that practice. So we have that leverage in the sense of we can make those APIs available to anybody and they then can do the work. Now, it's a lot of work on our end, on the front end, but then they can easily integrate and we could have 10 integrations done in a month in theory, right? Because people can work on them at the exact same time and they don't need us. And so That's what we're trending towards, right? So we're hoping at the AAO to release our first version of our public APIs, which we're really excited about. We'll be the first open platform out there in this space, which means that anybody can integrate with us. In theory, Jill, you could build your own app on top of Greyfinch if you wanted to on the practice. If you had a specific thing you wanted to have, you could build on top of it, or you can integrate with it with whatever you want. So there's just a lot of really cool things coming with that down the pipeline with that. And ultimately, anybody that wants to integrate with us, obviously we can say no if it's a company that doesn't make sense for whatever reason. But ultimately, we want the clinics to have the freedom to use and work with whoever they want. And having this is a different approach than what's been taken in the past. And quite frankly, it's just the more modern approach with what we're doing. And that's what every other software that people are doing. So we're going down that path. It's expensive. It's a lot of work for us, but it sets us up and our customers up for better success long-term with integrations and using different third parties, depending on what that be. And that way, someone wants to use a different two-way texting platform for whatever reason, and they want to integrate with us, they can. Like it's your choice. It's your practice.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the forwardness of that. I love that you are, again, taking a totally different approach, swimming out there in your own blue ocean and saying, we're going to approach this differently because again, I think that's what's setting you guys apart. And I love that. I love to hear that the sky's the limit for what you'll be able to do with that. So that's
exactly.
great.
That's what we're trying to think. And I think I had a doctor tell me that one time. He said, I really appreciate your guys' approach. You're not trying to be everything to everybody or do things exactly the way everybody else did it in the past. And so now, and we're going to lose some business that way, likely. That's okay though, because we know that we're setting ourselves up and our practices that work with us now up for future success as well as with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the future. What do you see? You've been giving us a ton already, a ton of insight. What do you see coming down the line or that you think we need to be aware of just in the software?
Yeah, of course you hear everything's AI and chat GTP and all that fun stuff, right? And there's a place for it already in this space, right? There's companies out there that are leveraging it for monitoring purposes and different things that way, which has been really cool to see in the growth on that. And I think that's going to continue to grow and evolve. And I think there's I think if you're not looking at those options right now, you should. I'm not saying you need to go do it right now. Maybe it doesn't fit in, but you really should think about how you can incorporate that stuff into your practice when it comes to the monitoring stuff and not having to come in all the time and those types. It goes back to the whole virtual appointments thing. Same concept. I'm busy. I don't want to come in all the time if I don't need to. And so thinking about those things, but then on the flip side of it, in the practice management space, there's a lot of different ways that we can leverage technology in here. Obviously with the APIs, that's going to give us a lot of flexibility, but we also are going to we have on our roadmap to auto respond to messages, right? When someone texts at 10 o'clock at night and says, hey, what's my bill? Why do we need to wait for someone to respond back if it's super obvious what they're asking for? Greyfinch already knows the answer to that. It's in the software. We could just respond back to them, right? And so building things out like that with auto responses and leveraging technology around that. And that's not anything earth-shattering, quite frankly, but there's much better ways to do it now and cheaper and faster and all that good stuff too. I also think that we can leverage AI and machine learning and algorithms and all that good stuff within scheduling. I think that's one of the things that practices, especially startups, struggle with as they grow, which you help them with that, which is great. But as you can create a great schedule, but it's only as good as patients showing up on time and assistants, no surprises, assistants doing what they're supposed to do on the time. We can leverage the technology because if you use Greyfinch the way that it's intended to, we're tracking all that stuff in the background about how long they were waiting for the doctor and how long, those types of things. So now we can start saying that patient is literally always 5 minutes late. Their appointment's at 10. The appointment reminder is going to tell them their appointment's at 9:55 or 9:50 then. But it just does all that kind of behind the scenes. That's where I think the future is with that. But then also taking it and learning about your schedule and helping you schedule better too, right? Knowing that a patient is always late or that they always seem to have broken brackets or you need to spend extra time. There are 20-minute appointments, but they always are 30 minutes for this patient. Why are we scheduling 20 if it's always 30? Let's schedule 30, right? The system knows that. Like, why does the staff have to think and remember that kind of stuff, right? So we can help with those types of things too in the future, but it takes time. But you got to learn. It's learning the behavior, training your models, all that kind of stuff that you need to do. It's not something you can flip on overnight, But I think those are some of the things that we've talked about at Greyfinch that we want to do and that we're going to try to do. And we'll see, right? We have to make sure it works well first before we would implement it. The last thing we want to do is mess everybody's schedule up. Like that would not be good. Everybody show up at my door with pitchforks. So we want to make sure that stuff's right and learn. But we have some developers that are really big into the AI side and do a lot of stuff on their own and messing with it. So it's really fun to see. And so you'll see more and more. We have AI ceph tracing built into Greyfinch. So it auto traces your cephs for you. So you don't have to do all that kind of stuff. You don't have to click on the points yourself. It's literally less than 60 seconds and you have your tracing and measurements back. So implementing more things like that where it makes sense, right? We can all get caught up in the whole AI or just technology stuff. It's cool. And I'm all about cool. So I'll for sure. Yeah. But when you're talking about your business and that, you need to look at the ROI on it too. It's not always about cool. And so we have to keep that stuff in mind too, that it may be cool, but what's the actual value there for you besides being cool? We're constantly trying to think through that stuff and looking at things. And we have some pretty exciting stuff that we're going to be announcing before the AO as well too. I'm not quite ready to do that on this podcast yet, but we're not far away. We have some really cool stuff that's coming out that we're going to be releasing and announcing around that stuff too.
That is fabulous. I can't wait to hear. I'm sure we'll hear some good stuff at the AAO. And as you roll it out, that is the one thing I've really appreciated about you guys is you do a good job at putting things out when it's ready to be put out and not going to putting the cart before the horse, which I think is nice. There hasn't been a lot of, we're doing this and now that didn't really work out. So we're changing it because that's where the frustration comes in. So as we wrap it up here, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, find out more about Greyfinch, talk to us a little bit about that. And I know for our listeners, everybody listen up. There's a little bit of a discount, a Hey Docs discount that you guys are also doing. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to start is obviously our website at greyfinch.com. But if you go to greyfinch.com/Jill Allen, you can read a little bit more about Greyfinch there and also get a discount as well off your startup fee that we're doing for the podcast listeners here. So definitely go that route or just mention it to us when you're talking to us that you heard about us on here. If you'd like the Hey Docs discount, we'll take care of it. No problem at all. But that's the best place to start. You can schedule. Whoever makes it easiest wins, right? That's my motto with everything in life, or I try to make it. And so we try to make it easy for you. You can schedule a demo right online. Just be really funny if we didn't let you schedule a demo online, but we tout how important it is for your patients to be able to schedule online, right? We have that on there. It makes it really simple. Our phone number's on there too, but that's the best place to start. And or if you're not ready to schedule a demo, just fill out the form and we'll reach out as well to you to help you get anything you need, any questions. We're not pushy. Like I said, our big thing is we're really trying to partner with you on this, on your practice management software and create a great software for your practice and really help you because that's what helps us too. We grow when you grow, which is great.
That's wonderful. All right. I know you have listened before, but the way I like to finish up our Hey Docs is to do a quick speed round. Are you ready for the speed round challenge?
Let's go.
All right. Describe your style in one word.
Simple.
I like that. Okay. What are you listening to or watching?
I'm a big documentary fan. And so I recently watched American Nightmare on Netflix and it was crazy if you haven't watched it yet. It's a true story. It's wild. So I highly recommend it. And I'm a big podcast listener as well, too. Of course, your podcast, anything to do with Iowa sports is something I always listen to. And then big Iowa fan. And then I also really enjoy the Economics of Everyday Things is another great podcast. They're short, but very interesting. A lot of things that you're like, oh, that is cool. So I've really enjoyed that, too.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm the same way. I'm a consumer of all things. And it's amazing how many amazing podcasts are out there. And you can get it in just such a quick little blip. All right. What do you like to do just for you?
I love to play pickleball and golf. Those are my two Jake things.
That's great. We'll have to do a pickleball sometime.
I would love to.
Meet up and play some pickleball. Golf, I can drive the cart. Hidden talent.
I don't know if I'd call it hidden, but one of the things I've really gotten into that a lot of people don't know about me is that I've really gotten in. I love barbecuing and that kind of smoking meat and stuff, but I've really gotten into pizza making. So I have a pizza oven and make my own dough and sauce and all that fun stuff. I'm really into it. So now if you're ever at a meeting and you want to find the best pizza place in town, maybe that's my hidden talent is I'll get you there because that is something I look up all the time before I go somewhere. And maybe it's not always the best, but I always try to find good pizza. That's a weakness of mine.
I'm going to be hitting you up for that and I might invite myself over for some pizza at some point.
Absolutely.
And then final question. Do you have a big, hairy, audacious goal you want to share with us?
From a business perspective, obviously, a goal is to really build Greyfinch into just the no-brainer practice management software for people.
Mhm.
And again, I know it's not always going to be for everybody, but for the majority of clinics, like what do you use? You need to use Greyfinch. And if we can get to that point, then we're doing the right things. We're taking care of our customers, and everybody wins at that point. Then, outside of the professional world, someday I would love to start a food truck, which is a weird thing, maybe, and
Love
really maybe not that audacious, but it's something that I would not have any idea what to do to start, and I think it'd be a fun challenge. And I love to cook, so that would be a fun thing for me to do someday.
Oh, how fun. Thank you again for being on Hey Docs and just for what you're doing in our orthodontic industry. Greyfinch is definitely meeting a need and helping a lot of practices. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. And I love working with your team, and your clients are great. And you're doing a great job as well
Thank
with
you.
your, you can tell because there's so many people that use you and really have enjoyed our relationship and working together. And it's important to find good partners in this industry and
Mhm.
work together because ultimately we're just trying to help the doctors out and have a
Yes.
successful practice. And if you have like-minded companies, then we're gonna be able to do that for them, which is what's
Yeah.
important.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks so much for being on Hey Docs, and we'll have you on again. Okay.
Great. Thanks so much,
All
Joe.
right.
Appreciate your
See ya.
time. Bye-bye.